1. Ragnarok Thor. He's that character Marvel still hasn't decided what to do with. Ragnarok. Possibly the darkest, most extraordinary character in the Marvel Universe. According to the comics, after Civil War, there was one detail everyone kept arguing about. Where was Thor? As it turns out, the real Thor wasn't around during that period, and he was badly needed. That's exactly when Tony Stark, Reed Richards, and Hank Pym, Marvel's sharpest minds, came together with an incredible idea. Using a strand of Thor's DNA kept hidden away in the Avengers base, they set out to grow a clone. They named this clone Ragnarok. I should mention here, the real purpose behind this was to take down the heroes who had risen up against the Superhuman Registration Act. But of course, nothing goes according to plan. This clone Thor, Ragnarok, spirals out of control, and during the battles, he ends up betraying his own allies. I compare it to what happened to Tony Stark during the Ultron era in the MCU. Anyway, what Ragnarok does to his own teammates is so unsettling that every hero present is left shaken, and they all flee. Once they later learn the truth that this Thor is actually a clone, a serious trust issue develops between them and Tony Stark. Do you think, if Ragnarok ever made it into the MCU, would it break box office records? 2. Vision. I think Vision is one of the most underused characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He has such a rich variety of stories in the comics, yet in the MCU we sadly saw a much more passive, background version of him. In the classic Avengers comics from the 1980s, there's a very different Vision, one who thinks like a pure machine. He decides that the only way to stop all conflicts that have ever existed is through control, and he secretly connects himself to every computer system in the world. His goal is actually, in his own mind, a good one, to completely end wars and chaos, and to create what he believes to be the best possible version of the world. But as you know, every villain believes their own idea is the best one, and moves forward without acknowledging the evil hidden beneath the good world they've created. The best executed example of this was Thanos, someone who ended lives across the world according to his own scale of justice and tried to establish his own order, even though he wasn't a good character at all. I see this Vision story as somewhat similar to that. He genuinely believed he was doing the best thing. When his teammates find out, they're shocked. They don't think he's malicious, but even well-intentioned authoritarianism turns out to be terrifying on its own. The idea of controlling everything for the sake of good, however well-meaning it looks, ends in disillusionment in the story. And now we've arrived at the most paranoid, most unsettling part of the list. 3. Nick Fury. When the Secret Warriors series was published in 2009, it was genuinely found very interesting, because it reveals a very different truth. The Nick Fury we know from the MCU has a completely different backstory here. Nick Fury is actually an LMD, life model decoy, a biomechanical copy. This copy is controlled by a secret organization called Leviathan, and this fake Fury is known in the comics as Max Fury. Max Fury has all of the real Fury's memories and abilities, but his loyalty lies with a completely different side. So right when you think you're protecting S.H.I.E.L.D., the person you trust most might actually be a copy tearing it apart from the inside. This gives the story a genuinely paranoid atmosphere. Do you know the most chilling part? For months, not a single character realizes it's a copy. Do you think a copy that imitates a real person this well still counts as that person? Or is it a completely separate being? Think about it. 4. Professor X. This has to be the most shattering storyline in the Marvel Universe. According to the story, Professor X spends a very long time reaching into Magneto's mind and keeping him under control, in order to prevent the harm Magneto could otherwise cause. But naturally, this doesn't last. One day, the suppressed rage inside Professor X merges with Magneto's darkness, and something entirely new emerges, a being called Onslaught. This entity might just be the darkest thing in the entire X-Men universe, because what emerges can't really be called either Professor X or Magneto anymore. It's a being formed purely from the fusion of both of their darkest sides, a mind driven solely by a desire for power and control. And it becomes so powerful that the Avengers and the X-Men are forced to team up just to stop it, treating it as a threat to everyone. To give you an idea of just how dangerous and terrifying this event was, the crisis it caused was so massive that, for a time, Marvel had to completely halt and relaunch both the Avengers and Fantastic Four comic lines. In other words, even the writers themselves lost the ability to control what this entity had become. What actually makes this story so compelling is that even though the thing that emerged was branded as pure evil, you could also think of it as a suppressed good intention gone wrong. So, if the newly rebooted MCU tackled this story now, do you think it would be worth going to the theater for? 4. Daredevil. Matt Murdock is a hero who delivers justice in the streets, by his own rules, but always within certain boundaries. In the storyline Shadowland, though, that line disappears completely. Matt takes control of a secret organization, the Hand, supposedly to clean up crime in Hell's Kitchen for good. But the organization's dark power starts to take him over from the inside. He builds a massive, dark fortress in the heart of Hell's Kitchen and starts viewing even his old allies as enemies. The scene where he kills his greatest enemy, Bullseye, marks an unbelievable turning point for a Daredevil who has never crossed that line before. It's later revealed that Matt has actually been possessed by a demon. But here's the twist. The demon doesn't force him to do anything, it only amplifies the rage and hunger for control that were already inside him. So maybe what we saw was never really someone else at all. Do you think what changes a hero is a force from the outside, or something that was always inside them? Think about it, because our next character involves a sorcerer reading the most dangerous book in the universe. 5. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange's entire power rests on strict discipline and control, even his use of magical weapons is bound by certain rules. But in Marvel's What If series, there's a storyline that shatters all of that. Instead of destroying the Darkhold, the most dangerous spellbook in existence, Strange decides to keep it. We got a taste of this book's story in the Multiverse of Madness film, but honestly, I feel the book was pushed too far into the background there. Looking at the original comic storylines, the book's power is far darker and far more effective. Anyone who reads it is slowly taken over by it. As a person keeps reading, they gradually gain access to a dark, limitless source of power, while at the same time becoming its slave. And of course, Doctor Strange is exactly the kind of character drawn to a book like this, both in the comics and across the wider Marvel universe. He's known for his curious, investigative nature. But once he starts reading, things start to take an extremely dangerous turn for him. 6. Beast. We all know Hank McCoy Beast as a kind, scientifically minded hero. But in the alternate reality Age of Apocalypse, there's a completely different character born from him, Dark Beast. In this alternate world ruled by Apocalypse, this version of Hank McCoy doesn't use science for humanity's benefit, but for experimentation and control. He conducts ruthless genetic experiments on mutants, turns people into monsters, and recognizes no ethical limits whatsoever. He looks almost identical to the real Beast, but his intelligence has merged not with compassion, but with total indifference. The most disturbing part is that when this alternate reality collapses, Dark Beast slips into the main Marvel universe and wanders around undetected for a long time. For quite a while, the heroes don't even notice the traits of this dark twin lurking among them. Do you think a hero's love of science, if misused, can become this dangerous? Think about it, because our final character is perhaps the most tragic transformation on this list. Now it's your turn. Out of all the characters we've covered since the start of the video, whose villain version solo film do you think would break box office records? Which one would you most want to watch? Write it in the comments. If you want a second part to this video, write continue in the comments and I'll gladly put it together. There are plenty more Marvel videos on my channel that might catch your interest, so I recommend checking them out. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. See you in the next video.